Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sales SOS LinkedIn Live. And I am here. I'm Liz Hyman, and I'm here with your Sales SOS podcast crew. And today we're going to be talking about AI. So we're going to talk about 4 topics. And for those of you who haven't joined us before, I'm not sure who's in the room because Bryn usually does that part for me. We're going to break this discussion into 4 different podcasts. And the topic is AI, and we're going to talk about how sales reps can use AI, how leaders can use AI, how customers are using AI and what their expectations are, and how we as humans sift through the noise that AI is creating. So that's what we're going to do. And if you are with us and you have questions or thoughts, chime right in. I wouldn't even know how to see them, as I said, because that's what Bryn always does. Okay. Are you guys ready?
Ready. You didn't introduce us.
Chris,
I'm going to introduce you right now. I did forget to.
I was just emailing back to Chris. He just said he's caught in traffic a quarter mile from his house, so he'll be there in just a moment.
I'll keep an eye out. If one of you keeps an eye out on if in case anybody joins.
I will. I just texted him what our topics are too.
Great. Excellent. All right. Here we go. Welcome to the Sales SOS podcast. I'm Liz Hyman, your host, and I am here with your Sales SOS podcast crew. Today we have Renee Bigelow, Mike Simons. And all of a sudden I'm like, I don't know how to say Mike's name.
It's okay. It's Simmons. It's still there. Everybody will figure it out. Best way to remember is Gene Simmons or Richard Simmons. You choose your choice. Know which one I got made fun of for.
And I just said it, and it didn't come out right. I'm
That's
like,
okay.
That's so funny, Mike. I'm like, oh my goodness. All right, and Daryl. So let's try that again. And Mike Simmons and Daryl Prell, and we are here today talking about AI. And we expect Chris Bowen to join us in a little bit, but we're going to do 4 episodes in a row talking about AI because we did this about a year and a half ago as our first podcast. And wow, our understanding of podcast has changed. Boy, this is going to be a fun day, you guys. Our understanding of AI has changed so dramatically in a year and a half that I can't believe it. Like, I was listening to that going, wow, I know a lot more than I knew now. And there's so much I don't even have a clue. So we're going to dive in and we're going to start at the beginning, which is how do sales reps use AI? How are they using it? How could they use it better? What are some of the tools that are out there for them to use? Where do they use it in the process? Because, Renee, you said something when we were just chatting before this, which is we kind of thought AI was going to take over the top of the funnel. And what we're learning is that there are all kinds of uses for AI all the way along the sales process. And so I don't know if you want to jump in or if somebody else wants to start, but wow. Let me start really general. How are salespeople able to use AI to make them better at what they do?
Well, I think I'll just kick us off by saying I think in the market, so a year and a half ago, a lot of people in a lot of roles, including sales, didn't feel that AI was reliable enough to do much other than help them word things or phrase things, right? But it wasn't dependable enough or reliable enough. And in that span of time, AI has gotten much smarter, and there are much more connectors and product features and tools that you can use with AI versus just chat, right? So I think the ability has changed greatly, but I think there are 2 worlds out there for AI and sales of people who are kind of on the frontier and see those new abilities and are doing a lot of things. A lot of that's company culture. Some of it is individual innovation, right? Like managing their own book of business in a different way and everything, right? And then there's the class of people who still think it's kind of clunky like it used to be a year and a half ago, so they haven't picked it back up and aren't really using those tools. So I think we have a kind of a dual class citizenship happening with AI use in sales. Mike, do you think similarly?
I think it's I think there are people who will constantly move through that piece of like fear mongering around what things are going to eliminate, what things are going to no longer be there, and how something will work or how something won't work. And unfortunately, a number of the people who do it aren't using the tools. So like I don't like when they share those things, their experience might be a little bit different than something else. It might be that they had a poor experience with a chatbot, as an example, or maybe they went in and they did a prompt in ChatGPT and the result was different than what their perspective was. Shocking. People have a different perspective, and so do machines. And so I think it's a I think it's I think there I think there's I'd probably put people into one of those three categories that you had said: the ones who are using it and starting to adopt it, the ones who are skeptical and not sure about where things are going to go, and the ones who haven't touched it and are still sharing their perspective.
And I would even add to what you just said that the ones who are kind of naysaying often don't know the thing that they need to do to get better results. So they think like just asking a question should give everything. And there's some art, right? There's some art and science to getting good results out of it. So.
Kind of like dealing with people, right? Like you look at the
kind of like doing any job.
Yeah,
if you do it halfway, you're going to get some halfway results.
Yeah.
Well, I think though, like before we jump a little further into how sales reps can use AI, I think an important question has come up, and this is this whole thing about prompting. And I remember when AI first came out and everybody was talking about, we're going to need prompting engineers, right? Who know how to prompt and can help us make the right prompts. But we're learning a lot about prompting. And because Bryn's not here and she can't say it herself, she just wrote a book on a format for prompting that she calls Crispy. I don't know if she made that up or if it existed, but she's written a whole book helping people understand how do you prompt to get AI to guide you through what you need to get done. So just putting any prompt in is not going to necessarily get you the result that you need. And you often in the process have to change the prompt or rethink the prompt or be more specific or clarify or change the way you ask the question. So this is, I keep thinking this is just like we always said, garbage in, garbage out. If the prompt is garbage, what you get out will be garbage. And some AI tools are learning how to be more like us. I'm teaching my GPT and my Ask SSL, how do I speak? What things don't I say? What things do I say? So as we begin to get better at prompting, we will get better at getting the results we want. And Mike, did you want to say something?
I think the thing that's kind of interesting about it, and I was on a call with someone yesterday who worked for an AI company a couple of years ago, and it was deeply involved in a number of the things around recommending how prompts should be done. And when I put my first prompt in while he was watching, he's like, you really need to go and work on your prompting because that prompt, whatever. And the result was absolutely amazing. And he goes, maybe you don't need to work on your prompting. Like his prompts are essays and my prompt was 10 words. So a lot of it is having a view on what you'd like to see. Like, do you have a view on what the result should be at some point in time? And if you don't have a view on what the result should be, then it's going to be really hard to make the thing align with what it is. If you do have a view, then you can put the prompt in as simple wording as possible, see the result and say, that was kind of close. Do it again, try differently. And that's the beauty of it. And what I like about it, and what I like about how the evolution keeps happening, is you can take an iterative approach to building on things and once you start to come up with something that's working, then you can standardize it, which is some of the stuff that we're doing with the various GPTs that we have that operate parts of the business.
So what I find interesting is how quickly this conversation, which opened up with how are sales reps using AI, instantly went into this is how you should do prompting. You're not doing prompting right, not doing wrong. And that makes an assumption that the rep listening to this understands what we're even talking about, which goes back to Mike's point. There's three kind of different sales reps. And one of those groups is they're really not using it at all, right? So right away, if you're not using it, this conversation is probably, you're tuning out. But I also love Renee's point about one of the, well, she made many, but the one that really resonated with me was like a year and a half ago, versus now. A year and a half ago, very few people were talking about prompting, or the prompting skills, right? So I did a little experiment while these fine people were sitting here talking, and I wrote down. I have my little cheat sheet. I wrote down how I believe sales reps are using it. All right. So I said, in no particular order, and some of this is definitely a year and a half ago. Social media engagement, writing the posts, responding to the comments, and that was bad. People sift that out really, really quickly. That was like early days AI. It was abused because the problem is we all tend to look. There's so many people that look for shortcuts and they abuse the hell out of it, and everybody else can see it. So AI's gone through that for sure. But then as you get more sophisticated into it, I wrote down researching prospects. What are their pain points? Who are the personas? What are the discovery questions I should be asking? What are the objection handling responses I should be having? In other words, self-improvement. How can I convert higher using AI to understand this? Then I looked at the efficiency aspects, some of which is us really old. Gong's been doing this, Outreach has been doing this forever, whether it be like note taking, etc. But to me, daily planning. But I loved how the ones who are sophisticated were the ones, and this kind of where I build off your point, Mike, about prompting, writing an essay versus writing 12 words. Me, I prefer to do the one in the middle, which is let me start with 12 words and then let me iterate and refine and refine and refine and refine until I get what I want to, because then that allows me to think my way through it. So that was how I started. And then I went over here to my wonderful Gemini Pro, of which I pay for the advanced subscription, where the hell it is. And I asked the same question. And it was really interesting, and it came right away. The things it said: prospecting and lead generation, data enrichment, lead scoring, outreach and communication, personalized content creation, email optimization. You see, again, these are often built into it. Conversational intelligence, coaching, sales process, and forecasting. We haven't talked about that at all. Customer retention, upselling. Wonderful. So I did it myself. I used AI. And then I iterate it. So there we go. That's how I think I'm probably a typical sales rep, the way I just went about that.
Yeah. That was great. What I want to do right now, before we jump further down that path of using prompts and getting it right, which I think we can talk about in the 4th episode a little bit, let's really think about the sales rep. Okay, I'm sales rep A, I'm sales rep Liz, and I have to now do my job. And I'm one of those unfortunate sales reps who has every responsibility from prospecting to closing and not enough time to do it all. And I'm not very efficient. And what do I do? So let's sort of talk through how do I use this? Can we start at the top of the funnel and maybe talk about some of the things I could do at the top and then move through?
You go to Hoover's.
Okay, that's Hoover's is one. Yeah, go ahead. What do you do at Hoover's?
I don't think
the end of his answer.
Anybody
that was
listening
12
know
words.
what Hoover's is, or Jigsaw?
Jigsaw.
Well, Hoover's actually still exists. It just was purchased. Right?
Oh, no kidding. I've not used Hoover's in forever.
No, all of the Hoover's data was put into, I don't know which of the other databases, but okay. So what Mike is saying, we used to open a book I literally used to open a book called Standard & Poor's, right? But we don't need to do that anymore. There's no opening books. You don't even have to just go to a dead list, which is what I think of a list that's not being enriched, right? Right. So a list that is just a static or dead. Here's a list. I pulled all this information. I'm going to use it for the next 6 months. Well, in a month and a half, that list is starting to rot. Literally, it's no longer good. So we now have some tools that make list building a whole lot easier, and they're using intent data, which is really cool. I don't know if one of you guys wants to talk about what is intent data. How are we using this to build better lists? Oh, you're going to make me do it?
Well, I figured Renee would talk about intent.
Yeah, we're all waiting for Renee.
Marketing.
Some of the intent data providers
don't hold any punches. Go right out and come over with the real scoop.
Let's talk about what it is, and then let's talk about how it works. A lot of
intent data requires clean data attribution. And what has happened over the past couple of years, it started before AI, but it is now far murkier, is what we thought was this holy grail of being able to see every breadcrumb that every person did in the right order and everything else is a myth, right? Most of the activity doesn't show up that way. So if you're relying on a lot of vendors that do intent data that are basing their intent off of attribution of actions, which is like a digital breadcrumb, there are a lot of gaps in it. So the broad umbrella of intent data versus maybe your own first party information, right? So if you know someone's hit your pricing page, if you know someone's done some of those things, like those are first party intent data things versus a enrichment company for intent. So again, that one might be a little bit loaded for me because I think we have a lot of attribution crack going on and a lot of saying that things are visible when they're not really visible, when there are big gaps in data.
Well, 6sense used to do, I mean, 6sense was pulling intent data and charging a phenomenal amount of money, right, to do it. And now there are companies that maybe it's not perfect, but they are doing this and they are looking for clues that people who meet your ideal customer profile might be taking actions or asking questions that may or may not indicate that they're going to buy from you. So let's just start with, Renee, let's start with what it is. What is intent data? How are people using it to build lists? Because we now know there's problems with it, right? You just laid that out for us. Here's the thing to worry about. But what is this, and why are people using it? And is it working?
There are some very good ones too, right? Like that tie together databases, like actual databases, like building permits, business permits, things that are triggers that would put someone in the market that that if you are in home services and home sales would be a great one, right? And you can get a list of a true database, right, of people who have taken actions that put them in your market, right? They're triggers for actions that they take prior to when they need your services. I think those intent services are wonderful, and the promise of big data is actually starting to happen. Like we've been saying for over a decade, oh, big data, big data, big data, like you can do this. And it was actually quite clunky and hard, and we needed like solutions engineers to put all this together and get it into a CRM. But now there are services that tie together a lot of those databases, so you can filter down and find a much better, quicker version of intent type behavior based on triggers in other databases, right? In something like a Hoover's where you really could filter it down. I'm not saying Hoover's, but kind of that same concept, right?
I think Hoover's should sponsor us just for saying they're done.
They will be our most profitable sponsor yet.
And P.S. Mike, it hasn't been that long since I've used a Hoover's.
Wow, it's awesome. I remember, Hoover's and Siebel and these old systems, older systems, ACT, like stuff like that, where you come up and
Goldmine.
Say that again.
Goldmine.
Perfect. So we. Daryl has more gray hair than any of us. I am working on catching up. We've got some experience here. So as you look at this, there are some things that sales reps need to do in order to do their job well. And let's put sales reps under the umbrella of anybody who interacts directly with the customer and is carrying a quota. Okay. I understand that there are certain roles that may or may not carry a quota. Like some customer success folks will carry a quota and some won't carry a quota. In this instance, let's say anybody who is interacting directly with the customer and has a quota that they need to attain. Well, one thing you want to know is, who do you actually talk with? Like, who are those customers? And this list building piece, using a tool, one of the ones that we're testing is a tool called EXA, which is absolutely insane. It is amazing what we're able to do in testing small lists to determine, do we want to go deeper into that list or do we want to stop? So that we're not trying to get in front of 1,000 people. Let's start with 10 or 25. And that's the number we're starting with, 25. So we want to get a list of people that we want to be able to talk with. Then the other thing we want to do is we want to have some reason to reach out to them. And if you're connected with marketing, and you have information coming through and you're seeing some of the background data on the people that you want to reach out to, then you can reach out in context. That's one way to do it. Other things you can do is look at all the signals that are potentially out there. Way back in the day, we used to have to read annual reports or sit on the investor calls. Now you don't. Like, you could take that stuff, throw it into Notebook LLM, the recording of the call, and get a brief summary and listen to the podcast version of people talking about what just happened there. So now, while you're driving from where you are to where you need to get to, or you're on an airplane or whatever you're doing, you're able to listen to this stuff in context and be very targeted around the specific companies. Those are just a couple of examples of what you can do with data, where back in the day, we actually had to read a lot of stuff and then we had to call a lot of people. And now you can get so much more. So if you were going into a call unprepared, you're doing your job wrong.
Okay, so let's back up a second. So we started
Why'd you
with
laugh, Daryl?
No, I'm sorry.
research.
If you're going to a call, you're doing unprepared, you're doing your job wrong. I mean, that's always been the case. And the issue is too many reps were always unprepared. But that's why I was giggling. It was like, oh my gosh.
I think
So
my
you're old
point
too.
though is it's so much easier now, right?
Okay, hang on, because we keep getting ahead of ourselves. I'm a sales rep. I know nothing about AI, right? So we started with top of the funnel. Let me help you figure out which companies you're going after, which companies have given some intent, right? This is list building, right? So we go from list building to research. So we're hoping when we buy from a company that's creating lists that have intent, meaning they believe that this customer using the internet has expressed need or interest in our product, right? So this is intent data. This is list with intent. Now, I don't know how good they are because I haven't used one yet, but I know everybody's really excited about this idea of intent in list building. Okay, so now I've built a list. I built a list of people I want to go after, whether I used intent or not. And hopefully I got a list that has from a company that is updating the information constantly. And I have access to that constantly updating information. So now I have a list. Now I'm going to try to get some meetings. I'm going to try to send some emails. I'm going to have my first conversation. So now we're talking about research. And what Mike was talking about before is you have no idea if you are new to the sales world, how hard it has been to gather information and how many hours it takes if you're digging through the internet cold and trying to pull up reports and pull up their end of year reports and all this stuff. So now you have many ways to prepare, as Mike said, for a meeting, because now it's at your fingertips. And that 5 minutes that it takes to pull up some pertinent information is better than nothing. And I'm going to tell you how you look and feel when you don't do this research. And I'm going to have Mike and Renee tell us, and Daryl talk to us about how to do it. So I got on a call the other day with somebody who sent me something on LinkedIn that I thought, oh, I'm going to just see what they say, because they said they were going to do an assessment of my online presence. And I thought, well, that would be really interesting to hear. What is my online presence? I got on the phone, and the first question the guy asked me is, what do you do? He was supposed to have done an assessment of my online data or my online presence. He had not even looked up my name. That's what it looks like when you go into a meeting. So I played along for a little while, and then he started looking at my data, and eventually he got to the point where he said, you know, Liz, I can't help you with your online presence. You're already doing all the things we tell people to do. I'm like, so you and I just wasted 20 minutes for you to determine that I'm not even your ideal customer. So how do you make sure that when you get on the call with a prospect that you don't start off looking like an idiot? I mean, we can still do the basic things we've always done. Check them out on LinkedIn, look at their website, but there's more, better, and easier ways to do this now. So I don't know, Daryl, you look like you might want to jump in there.
No, I'm laughing because I see Mike laughing, because what you're asking is actually not an AI AI is not going to fix a rep's inability to do basic sales 101 of preparation and research. That's the issue.
Right.
And that's why I was laughing at Mike before, right? But if the rep didn't have time to do that, then AI, very quick AI, a handful of prompts before getting on the call might save their ass. But that's just me. Mike, go ahead. I'm sorry, I'm giggling.
Just like acumen and initiative. Like imagine if you have both of those. Maybe that's the AI we all need is acumen and initiative. A little bit of business acumen.
I picked that up, the A and the I. Well done.
I spelled it out only for you, Daryl.
That was good.
That was why I did that. You have no excuse for not at least asking some questions up front, and you might miss and you might not find out information. But yeah, that's a crap situation, Liz. But it's not uncommon.
So let's talk about how this happened. So one thing, I think this poor guy, I actually don't think it was his fault. I think the way his company had it set up was they just plugged him into the next call. Okay, you sit there and wait, and when you finish one call, we're going to plug the next one in. That's what I think happened. And they didn't build into the process any time for him to do it. I'm going to give him that benefit of a doubt. But okay, so if we are going to get on a call with a customer now, there is no excuse for not knowing about them. And there was no excuse before for not trying to know about them. I mean, we've had websites for over, I don't know, how many years have we had websites? 30 years? At the very least, you could have done that. But now you can get on to AI and you can ask for help. So when I start with a client who is doing a key account plan, for example, I'm amazed at how much they don't know. So I immediately jump on just to ChatGPT really simply and say, what are the key initiatives this company has put in place for this year? Now, if you're going for a really small company, they're not going to be, the information probably isn't going to be there. But if it's any size company at all, there's going to be information there. What are their vision, values, missions? What are the objectives they have for this year? And if that's not there, great. So what's going on in this industry right now? This client that I'm calling for is in this industry. What kinds of problems are they having in this industry? What kinds of things are they trying to do in this industry? What are the big problems that they're facing? Like you can ask AI. And if you don't know what to ask AI, you can say, hey, ChatGPT, could you tell me what I should be asking or what I should know before I walk into this client? And it will actually help you figure out what you should be asking. So that's just a really simple starting place. If you have a CRM that has AI built into it, some of that may just come up as you're pulling up the client. Renee, you look like you were thinking about jumping in.
I think, we call it research. And absolutely, I think we've moved into a realm where we should be thinking of anything that we do that's DIY research, how AI can help us, right? Do with this AI assisted research, because it's sometimes a savings on time. Sometimes, right? If you have a really good system and you're a great AE and you know how to get into things and look, you know how to scan corporate reports and listen to earnings calls and you already have sources that break down earnings calls, so you don't listen to the whole thing. Like some people have really good processes. They may not feel the time savings on using AI assisted research, but you will get a partner to help you look for patterns and listen for things. So as much context as you can build around a client, you can get things from their website, as you said, you can pull down corporate annual reports. There are so many things, whatever you can feed. If you can have it do a research report and look for any articles they've been mentioned in or whatever, right? And add all of those files into something like a project in AI so that it has a lot of context. And if you are able to record your discovery call with them, right? When you put all that in together, you are going to have so much help with like an assistant on your shoulder kind of thing, where you process your thoughts about the meeting and it says, oh, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? I looked at their corporate report and in your proposal, I don't see you mentioning anything about this initiative, right? Like it really.
Okay. I'm gonna stop you, Renee, for a minute, because now you're further down the process. So now we're a little further down the sales process, and what we're talking about now is how am I using AI to better engage with this person? I've already researched them and had our first meeting. Now you're talking about using AI to take meeting notes and help me plan my next meeting. And so let's walk through.
What I'm suggesting is every step along the way. So you were talking about the top of the funnel with like enrichment or triggers or intent data, whatever you want to call those, right? You've pulled those in and you've learned those about a client. Then you've gone out and done some research with whatever materials are to go into a call. Then when you add whatever you get into, even if you just add the email chain back and forth, right, of whatever they say when you reach out to them, you're continually adding context into it. And that's how it gets much better at helping you.
So what I would say, I'm laughing because I'm listening to both Mike and Renee here, and Mike has made a comment because he's really old. He said, we used to have to read paper stuff, right? I cannot tell you how many times we would pour through a 10K or a 10Q or an 8K, if you're a public company, to try to find clues on how to engage with this. You said in your 10K that you have this initiative for the next year and there's risk and these are your competitors and blah, blah, blah. We're now, to Renee's point, before I hop in that call, I can have AI simply say, look at the last couple, tell me what the issues are, tell me who the competitors are, tell me how they compare and contrast, and what are their likely, investments they're going to make, and how can my company help? Now, give me a series of, discovery questions that I can use to, find this out better. That's so quick and easy and done, as opposed to getting on a call saying, where the rep says, so what do you do? Sidebar, Liz, you should have said, seriously? Tell you what, let's reschedule this call. And when you know what I do, we'll have it again. But that's an aside.
Right. I was just curious.
I know. I
get
more
it. Than anything. So I did that with another guy who told me that I was missing out. And I said,
what were you missing out on?
Yeah.
He wasn't going to do the research and call me back.
That's right.
Oh,
so it was my loss. Too bad for me. That's what he said when he had.
That's when you say, you need to look up my last name and get back to me when you get a clue.
So this is really cool. So now we're talking about, I'm really trying to get us, if you're listening, you can't see that I keep putting the right person on the screen who's speaking, and I'm really
You're doing a great job, by the way. I noticed that.
I need some AI to do this for me.
It exists.
This would be the perfect thing for AI to help with.
Yes.
Right? No kidding. But this particular program doesn't seem to do it.
Huh. That's a good idea.
What's that, Mike?
Outsource the producer.
There's another option. But
that's manual. You need AI just to pick up on the moving lips and the sound.
Yeah, you said I was a great producer, Mike. Are you walking back on that?
Well, I'm just ready to fire you. Like, we'll just fire you out of jobs to be done, which I know we're going to talk about here in about 3 episodes. But
okay, I want to go ahead.
I was just going to say this idea of context that we've all said different ways to build context around prospects or customers, depending on which one it is, right? But the idea that's different, the way that AEs, that sales reps can really use this, I think, is to consider that you are building your database about that customer, right? So it's not one and done. I think that's one of the biggest differences. So that, as Daryl said, you have those 2 reports from one quarter to the next, or last year's year over year, whatever. And now you see what's different, right? And it can help you find those patterns that are a little bit harder when you've got, 50 accounts on your list or 10 people you're trying to call today or whatever. So continually adding context in. I think if there was one thing I would say to a sales rep, how can they start using AI? It's find pieces of information that you can feed to AI to give it context and continually build that over time, right? So that you're connecting in more and more sources of information to help you.
Okay, but now I'm going to play devil's advocate again here, which is I have all this information. I now have 30 pages of ChatGPT sharing information with me and processing everything I said and redoing it. And what do I do with this?
Send a proposal.
You ask the AI to help you win
over
the bet.
Yes.
You ask the AI to help you get down to the top next actions.
Right. So, and this is the key. This is not just about collecting data or whatever information. There's more to it than that. Use AI to help you process it. Okay, you've told me all this stuff. What's relevant to what we're trying to do? If you've had a meeting, you can put that transcript. If you use Otter, or I don't know, there's a million of them that are out there now.
Fathom, there's a bunch.
Yeah. What?
Fathom, Copilot.
Fathom, Copilot, Read AI. There's a million of them.
Even ChatGPT itself will do transcripts now.
So those, when they do the transcript, will give you some highlights and key actions, but you can take that transcript and put it in to whichever tool you choose to use and say, hey, so what were the most important insights that came out of this? Which ones can I take action on? Will you help me come up with a plan that addresses the things that were most important? And actually, somebody did this the other day with me really, really well. So we had a conversation. He used Fathom. He pulled the information out and fed it back to me in a way that demonstrated that not only did AI, he pulled out what AI said, and then he wrote a paragraph about how he would address that. So I wouldn't just pull everything out of AI and send that off and think you finished your job. You still have to interact in a human way, but AI can help you. Mike, I know you're ready to say something. Go ahead.
Thanks for always reading my nonverbal communication. This is the one thing AI will not replace, is Liz's ability to be able to say, like, oh, Mike has got some vein popping out of his head and he's just ready to share something. There's a couple of things to be careful with. Number one, make sure your customers know that you're recording them.
Absolutely.
Okay. So like there's some security and some ethical things to be aware of.
Ask.
Be careful.
Just make sure, but ask.
Yeah. Be careful that about the information you share and what you're using or allowing a system to use for training data. There's risk that comes up with this. So you'll have some risk assessments that'll happen inside your organization. If you anonymize things and you test some things, what you'll really realize is humans have human issues, and many times those humans have the same human issues across multiple organizations. There's just going to be some more specific things that'll come up inside individual companies. One of the questions, and as a sales professional out there, one of the things you should be really good at is asking questions. You should be curious. Let's ask simple questions and see what we can do to get information back as we go through the process. So another question you can ask after you go through all of this stuff that we've been talking about so far is this question: what should I have asked that I didn't ask? Or what might I have missed that you're surprised I missed? And see what the tool itself goes through and is able to pull out. So those are just a couple of other things. One, be careful about the security risks. Make sure you're have some of that process stuff in place, and go back to your sales skills and ask questions. You're a sales pro, be a pro.
Brilliant. In other words, it's always AI. It's like I always tell people, AI is just a tool. We've had tool after tool after tool brought in over the years, but it never changes the core elements of your job. Like you just said, Mike, still be a sales rep, right? You're using it to help you, but you still have to do the work. You still have to follow the process. You still have to, use your, develop relationship skills. None of that's changed. AI doesn't do that. It just gives you more time. However, your competition is definitely using it. And if you're not, they're going to be way faster and way more insightful with way better questions, drilling down to the issues way faster and conveying way more trust than you are, just so you know. So it's a tool.
Okay. I think, I think the question here is there anything left that we have not addressed, because we've spent quite a long time on this, that we have not addressed that a salesperson should be thinking about how they can use AI to improve their selling skills? Hang on.
I would say one more thing that's pretty simple. If there's anything that takes you an inordinate amount of time or you feel is like not your strength, then use AI in the appropriate way. Like don't when I say in the appropriate way, use AI to help coach you and be a partner to help you process your thoughts and maybe move along to do better. Don't automatically spit out results from AI just because you think it's your weakest area, but it really is helpful in wherever you feel. We said research, but some people are power researchers because they've got kind of a process they've already worked out, but maybe they aren't the best at communicating via email, right? Or maybe it's the opposite. Somebody's excellent in their communication skills, but not a deep researcher. Really make sure you're thinking of the place that either you really don't like to spend time in your job or the place where you could, it's not your strength, and find ways to use AI to help you with that.
So one of the questions we haven't talked about when it comes to a sales rep, how do I use AI? And maybe this isn't for this episode. If so, just tell me. Is if you're a sales rep, my boss could be one of two extremes. One is you need to use AI for everything and you're doing it wrong. Or the other one is they're not using AI at all. They don't have the tools. They don't want to make the investments, but I want to use AI, but they're laggards. So so in either of those scenarios, how does that affect how we use AI? Or does it? Maybe it doesn't.
There's a lot of shadow IT going on right now with AI.
Yeah.
A lot. To Mike's point, that can create risk, right? Like if you're saying you can't use it and you got a sales rep who's savvy and knows that they can do better and make more money because they use AI, they're going to go use AI. It's not going to be in the official way. They're going to share information that may not be on a company account that isn't protected from training on data, right? Like you're creating a lot of risk if you're being a manager who's being a real laggard about this, which might segue us into our next topic, Liz.
I think it does. Thanks everyone for joining us for this episode of the Sales SOS podcast. I'm Liz Hyman here with your crew, Mike Simmons, Renee Bigelow, and Daryl Pearl. Have a great day, and hopefully you'll join us in our next episode about AI and how sales leaders can use it. Okay, so we do have something happening, and I have looked all over my computer, and I don't seem to have anything open that would be doing that.
Do you see a overlay? I'm just looking at the help files on Restream. If you're in the studio, if you click the chat tab, I don't see it on my side. So Liz,
I don't see any chat. There's nothing. We haven't
There's no
chatted.
chat going on on the actual LinkedIn Live. I've got the LinkedIn Live because I'm monitoring there for chat. Nobody's chat.
Does anybody see a overlay button? Oh, here's me chatting. Cool. Yeah.
So that didn't make any noise.
No, there we go.
Yeah. One thing I would say is
use it to ask better questions.
Liz, your window up right now is the primary speaker. It looks like it should be to the right a little bit because you're overlapping the three speakers on the left-hand side.
That's what it does. We can use a different version.
I just noticed Nigel's chat. Use AI to ask better questions. That's a great contribution. Help you come up with better questions.
Thanks.
Love it.
Thanks, Nigel.
Cool. So I don't know where that. The only other time I heard it happen was when you were switching between things, but you weren't switching between when it was happening there, and it's not happening right now. So there you're on.
I don't know. Okay, let's try a different view.
If you do the all, I know you want this one because it helps with the editing. The all four view is clean with four of us.
I know, but then we can't use it for anything else. And what I'd like to do is have my person start pulling you guys out as well and creating little videos for you. So if you're listening to us, this is our sort of back of the house discussions as we try to work out what's happening here on our.
I'm trying to get rid of the beeps for our audience.
Yeah, we can't figure out where the beeps are coming from, and now I can't figure out how to change the view. Here we go.
So you're getting beeps?
Yeah, I can hear beeps.
Yeah, I was hearing it too. You weren't
I'm
hearing it?
I'm not hearing anything.
And it's not my phone because I put my.
Daryl, do you get any audio that comes off of your machine for instant messages or chats or anything? Or are you getting any text messages on your side?
I have got a couple. That could be it.
Can you if you could turn those notifications off? I'm not important and people don't text me and that kind of stuff. So I'm not getting any of those. Renee, I appreciate that you laugh at my bad jokes, or at least smile.
Okay.
It's nice of you. Thank you.
We could do this.
I mean, we all know it's most likely our kids texting because we told them don't bother us right now.
Right. I have my phone on. It was on focus. Now it is on do not disturb. So that should affect my computer as well.
Yeah, mine's on D&D too.
Okay, well, let's jump into managers.
Liz, have you heard from Chris? I'm just checking because he did email earlier.
No, there's still just the 4 of us in here.
Okay.
And he has not texted me, as far as I know. Yeah, no, I don't have a text from him.
And no email either?
Let's see. Do I have an email? No.
Okay.
Oh, wait, I do. Let's see.
I replied to the one he sent right before 4.
That's the only one we've gotten.
Okay. Well, then he's still probably caught in traffic.
These things happen. Okay. All right. Let's try again. Does this work for you, Mike?
Anything works for me.
Anything works for you? Then we're not covering the speaker at all. But I'm going to go back to start in the.
As long as Mike is the star of the show, that's all that matters.
Yeah,
well, Mike
that makes me feel very awkward.
Well, I mean, Mike, you and Mike did come with your professional backgrounds today. We got the whiteboard. We got the whole podcast studio.
You do.
You even have your on-air sign.
Yeah, but I don't have, unintelligible scribble behind me. I'm missing that part.
That is true.
Maybe I'll put some on the monitor here over my shoulder here. This one, that's right there.
I'm traveling. I have a feeling that the house I'm staying at wouldn't like it if I started scratching them.
Yeah, that's true.
I think you should do it. My handwriting peaked in 2nd grade. So.
All right, you guys ready? We're going to talk about AI for sales leadership. And here we go. Hi, welcome to the Sales SOS podcast. I'm Liz Hyman, your host, and I am here with your Sales SOS podcast crew, Mike Simmons, Renee Bigelow, and Daryl Prell. And we are still waiting for Chris Bowen, who will join us soon, I hope. In our last episode, we started a discussion about AI, and we actually had a discussion a year and a half ago about AI. And I would say the nature of the conversation that we had in this last episode versus what we had a year and a half ago is substantially different. Right now, I want to dive into what I think is a really important topic, which is how do we as sales leaders use AI to support our work and our team's work? There are a lot of new tools out there. There are a lot of ways that CRMs are being revised so that they gather and provide more information. So I have a million thoughts, but let me throw it out to the crew here. As a sales manager, where do I start, or as a sales leader, where do I start?
I think you have to understand what AI can do yourself. I mean, you don't have to be an expert, right? But you do need to have a decent understanding of what it can do before you start asking your reps to do it. You may have a rep who's really good, who can show you, right? I'm not saying like the expertise has to sit with the manager, but the sales leaders need to get some expertise in-house, enough to understand what they'd be asking their teams to do so that they can walk them through and help them as it goes, and bring in the appropriate training resources or tools.
So Renee, like what? I'm a sales manager. I don't really know AI. What should I be looking at, doing, learning?
I mean, I will literally, if you haven't done it at all, pick one of your major accounts that you're frustrated that it hasn't moved forward, and go through what you would want a sales rep to do, but you do it with the help of AI. Because you as a sales leader have a lot of knowledge of how to move conversations forward. You have a lot of history probably on the account that you can provide, and you understand your company's goals, their company goals, right? There's a lot that you can do as a sales leader with the knowledge inside your head where you get help with AI and you can see Some of the places it's not so great, and some of the places it is great, so that you start getting a feel for it.
I want to just respond quickly to what you're saying, Liz. What can I do? I don't really understand. How can I use it? Crazy concept here. Go to Google or your favorite AI, engine, and ask it to recommend a good AI course that you can take. It's crazy. You spend 15 minutes a day in a matter of a couple of weeks or a month, you're proficient and you're like a rock star. I've bought 3 courses myself and I use it all the time in the last 6 months because I want to go a little deeper in certain areas. I want to better understand. And I've got a couple podcasts I listen to periodically, not all the time. I subscribe to them. And if the content looks interesting, and these are AI specifically as it relates to sales or marketing. I mean, they're very niche. So if you're a manager or you're a sales executive or you're a sales leader, you need to demonstrate leadership and from the front and saying, I recognize I don't have these skills. I recognize I need them. I've taken steps to acquire the skills. Now, sales team, you need to do the same thing. All right. And then you can go beyond that and you can have weekly, sharing sessions and whatnot, whatever. But this isn't hard. What blows my mind is when they just go, I don't know. And that's it.
Wait, anyway, or I don't know. They should do it.
Yes.
I don't know, and they should do it.
Yes.
Okay.
I love that one. I don't know, but they're not doing it right, and it's your fault.
So then let's talk about what are some things that AI can do for leaders, and then we could talk maybe about what some of the tools are that achieve those things. But where do we start? As a sales leader, what's the first thing I should be thinking about using AI for?
But before one addition to the other stuff that everybody was talking about here, go and ask your team how they're using it. Like, just, hey, everybody, how are you using it? Is anybody using it? Just get that and then listen to what they have to share. Go ask your peers, are they using it? How are they using it? And get information, and then start to figure out some of those other pieces. So there's a couple of ways to help bridge the gap between, even thinking and action, thinking about how you might use it and then actually taking action. So once you dip your toe in, you realize, ooh, there's some really easy things. The first prompt that I did in ChatGPT was, how do I train my dog to sit? That was it. How do I build out a business plan? It was just, how do I train my dog to sit, and to see what it came up with. And it actually came out with some pretty good stuff, like 10 steps of things to do to go through that process. On the side that I use it on, what I'm doing right now is I'm taking notes and conversations from the multiple conversations I'm having across a couple of the different teams, and I'm pulling those together into documents and then sharing and saying, hey, what are some patterns that I might not be aware of? And because I want to know where I'm missing. As much as I can go really deep on certain pieces, there are blind spots that I know that I have for myself. So I'm using it in that context as a sales leader across different teams that I'm working with.
I would say one other area that is like a first, after you personally start getting comfortable and can, as Daryl said, lead, right? Which is primary for sure. But another area that I think is really helpful for sales leaders is AI is always better when it has more context. And you need to be thinking of, from your sales leadership position, what context can you give your sales team that would help improve their use of AI? So can you give it a playbook, right? And say, everybody put this playbook in as you're prospecting. And I've already built out for you, here are some of our top differentiators. Here's our value proposition. Here is how this industry uses us. Here are some quotes from customers in this industry. Here is a case study and a success story, right? Here are a bunch of things that we have been throwing at you for years. But as part of the playbook, I'm giving you this for context for this sales campaign that we're doing, so that when you're talking to AI, it can do better because it understands the goal, it understands the parameters, it understands our value proposition, right? So thinking of how you can build things to give your team so that they can be more successful with AI, I think is a really good place to use your headspace and time.
So
hang on a second.
Go
Hang on
ahead.
a second. I just want to be clear. I'm a sales leader. There are some tools out there. One is a tool called ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, right? And
Or
I
Copilot.
can, what?
Or Copilot. I say that.
Or Copilot. Thank you.
We're forcing you to use Copilot.
Okay, so now what I can do as a sales leader is I can start to think about if my team is using Copilot or Gemini, whatever it is for coaching, which is essentially what they're doing, help me figure out what to say to this person or that person. What I can do is I can create a playbook or parameters. I can say, hey, I want you to use the corporate version of this tool, and we're going to put in information about our product. We're going to put information about our buyers. We're going to put rules about what you can and can't say in an email. We're going to start to fill it with the things that if I were personally coaching the person, I would be going back to and using. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I can take that a step further and I can say, hey, I noticed that I can have AI built right into my CRM, whether it's HubSpot or it's Salesforce or whichever one I'm using. A lot of them, Membrane, which is my new favorite tool in the whole world, which is an amazing CRM. You can build it right in there, but if you don't tell it what you want it to say, if you don't build the playbook for it, it will not give your team the information you want your team to have. And it may give them coaching that is contrary to what you think is appropriate. So that's what Renee is talking about. And you could take it further into other tools. Daryl, were you about to say something when I cut you off?
I was responding to your original question, which is, how should I use AI as a sales leader? And you've all had lots of suggestions. Mine's a little more high level. What are your biggest pain points? That's where you should start. For me, whenever I've been head of sales, a CRO, there was always two areas that were a pain in the ass because I didn't necessarily trust the data or I didn't trust the people, So one of it was forecasting and just pipeline health, because I knew every single week I'm going to be at the executive meeting with my fellow executives, and they're looking at me to say, are we going to hit the number? Are we not? And someone, I don't know who, is going to ask me a question about some account that I didn't prep enough on to be able to respond. So using AI to actually assess the pipeline health, to poke holes, see, in other words, what's the likelihood of this deal happening? Right now it's at 80%, but can you tell me? And they can come back and say, well, based on historical sales, you have to communicate every 3 days and no one's talked to them in 14 days, blah, blah, blah. So therefore you're probably not going to do it. Shit. Okay. So pipeline health, forecasting, AI was awesome. It can be an awesome tool. The second area I struggled with, not because it's a lack of skill, but it's a lack of where do I start? Like, give me just give me the talking points, the bullets that I need to engage with my reps, which is performance management and coaching. All right. Those were my two recurring big pain points that I always felt half in the dark on. That's where I would start with AI. Yes, you need to do playbooks. Yes, you need to look for adjacent markets. Yes, you need to improve your conversion rates. Yes, you need to build an ICP, blah, blah, blah. But as a sales leader, you personally start with your own biggest issues.
It's really for anybody using AI. Start with your own, what the things you don't like to do or the things you struggle with. Yep. Find ways that AI can help you.
Okay, so let's back up for just a second because I want to put context around what Daryl just said. Back up. 80% of American companies cannot predict their revenue within 20%. And most of them, it's worse than that. If you are going to be off by 20% of what you predicted, so let's say you said we're going to have a $40 million year, and you're off by 20% or 25%, or 50%, it's really hard to run a business. So how do you know what to buy? How do you know how many people to hire? How do you know, what you're producing? You've got to have better insight, and AI can help us have better insight into what our numbers are. And just to reinforce that a little bit, 60, now I've forgotten the number. I believe it's 60% of sales leaders are not confident about the projections that they provided. So that means you walked into the board and you've given them projections that you really don't know if you're going to hit or not. So how do we use AI to make this better? So one is to use AI that is built into the CRMs that we have to help us analyze the data better. Another is to use tools like Power BI. And I've seen it's not an easy tool to use. It's not an easy tool to employ, but once you get it set up, it can pull information from different databases, put it together for you, and help you see better what your CRM alone isn't telling you. So, but again, if the data that you're working from isn't right, if it isn't complete, if your sales reps don't fill it in on time, you may not have what you need to predict. That's my starting place. Mike, it looked like you were going to jump in.
There is no way I'm getting into a discussion around forecasting and processing right now if that's not the focus of our week. And I know we're going to do that at some point in time. So
Absolutely.
I'm going to decline to engage in that part and bite my tongue.
Well, in any case, I'm just talking about how do you use tools? Like what tools are out there to help you better do that?
So, and I'm having a little bit of fun because Liz and I are going to have an amazing conversation here in either a month or two as a team. Know what the specific purpose of the tool is before you start applying it.
Agree.
Like, what is the job to be done at the tool? And then ask yourself, do I have the skill to apply it? If you don't know what the job is, or you don't know what the skill is, or don't have the skill, then what are you doing? And how can you expect your team to apply tools if they don't have skills? And then what would make you think that you can apply tools if you don't have skills? So just kind of work through those pieces. Like what's the job to be done? And I know we'll get into this a little bit later when we start talking about noise, but what's the job to be done? What's the skill necessary to apply? And if you're struggling with that, we'll get back to Nigel's comment here about ask better questions and use the tools to ask better questions as you go through the process. One of the things that I found super interesting is using the tool to provide a perspective that I don't have. And this gets into some of the prompting stuff that we were talking about a little bit earlier, which is, hey, you're a chief marketing officer inside a certain stage organization. I am the chief revenue officer inside that organization. Here's my plan. What parts of it don't you like? What parts of it do you like? What parts would you call BS on? Like those, then do the same thing across product, and then do the same thing across operations, and then do the same thing from a CFO perspective. And you'd be shocked at some of the things you'll learn as you go through it. And those are simple things that you can do if you've actually put together your own plan.
So I love that. I think what we want to be careful with is noting what Mike said, which was, I have some ideas. I'm putting them into AI and I'm asking it to assess it. I think one of the mistakes that we make when we're new to AI before we realize how it's actually going to work is that you say, hey, help me build a marketing plan, or hey, help me, whatever it is. And it gives you, here's your marketing plan. If you haven't given it enough context for it to help you do it, what you get is not going to be what you want. So rather than just letting AI give you what it thinks is best, you want to make sure that you put in the context or give it a starting place so that you're actually getting something useful. Otherwise, what you may find is what sounded really good, because this is the thing I find about like ChatGPT particularly, is it sounds really good until I set it down and I read it tomorrow. And then I'm like, there is so much nonsense in there. What, thank goodness I didn't send that out or bring that to somebody. So just be really thoughtful about where you start the process, but there's so much help out there.
Liz, to that point, I think that as a sales leader, another piece of that, like know the tool, know the purpose, right? But another piece of it is work across the organizations, across your organization, to get your data in good shape to use, right? So know where you have gaps, so that you know where AI is not going to give you the best answer. Make sure that you've gotten your data. Work with your accounting team, work with your product team, work with your customer support team, whatever you need to do, right, to make sure that the data you're trying to pull into Power BI or in or out of your CRM, like we all know that there are places in our CRM where it's not that great, right? Like we know the fields that are, and we know the fields that kind of aren't, right? So making sure that you kind of mapped all that out and you understand where you have gaps and you're working toward filling those gaps. A little bit of information architecture, a little bit of clear labeling will get you a long way with AI doing a much better job in helping you. But the number one thing is to start documenting and speccing out your requirements for what you need. AI gets better every day, and there are new tools every day. If you are clear in what you need and the data that you have and where your gaps are, you can hit go much faster and get better results continually as it all gets better. But we can't skip that work. And I think a lot of people think they can just, as you said, give me a marketing plan. And if it doesn't have your data, it's going to give you a mid-average plan, right? That has nothing to do with you, right? That's literally what it's shooting for, is like mid for those answers if it doesn't have context. When you give it context, it's shooting for the best possible answer for your context, right?
So I want to share another tool, completely different, which is you can now make an avatar of yourself, and you can give that avatar every article that's been written, everything you've said, or you can write stuff up for it and literally have your team, when you're not available, go to the avatar and ask questions. The quality of the answers will depend upon the quality of the input, but sometimes you're not there to help. That might be a tool. Maybe you're the VP of sales of a company that has 1,000 sales reps, and you like to share things with the team that you don't have the ability to work one-on-one with 1,000 people. So thinking about, how do I replicate myself as opposed to just letting AI do whatever it wants? How do I replicate the information I want my team to have? That's kind of a crazy idea, but I've seen it done, and sometimes it works well. Mike, what are you thinking?
I think anything that we can do to help people just start testing is a good thing. Just remember, the barrier to entry is super, super, super low right now. Since the barrier to entry is so low, the risk of getting caught up in the noise is really high too. The risk of wasting time is really high. So put in your own personal limits around how much time you want to spend here, so that you don't get caught up just doing things for the sake, procrastinating on other things, like avoiding other stuff because now you found this new shiny thing to play around with. But get out there and play. And when you get out there and play and you share with others what you're finding, what you realize is there's a group of people who are also testing around the same time, who are looking to do different things. And one of the things that I'm seeing so many more of, and they're getting better these days, are these the AI coaching platforms. And I think I shared this on the one that we did a year ago, and the story I think still applies. Is I had a founder of one of the platforms who was using some intelligence to rate a call that he did. And in that call, it was an initial research meeting. It was an initial discovery call, and it rated him super high on the things that he did in the call. I looked at the talk track, and he spoke north of 75% of the time. Like, I don't know about, well, I do know the people that are on this call. you're doing a coaching call, you're doing a discovery call with someone, and you're spending 75% of the time talking. What are you discovering? Discovering whether or not they like what you're throwing at them. So watch out about the garbage in, garbage out type stuff, and things are getting better. So know what the tools are being trained on is the point, and make sure it aligns. And that's one of the cool things about some of the ones that Liz had talked about being able to put your own content in there and do that. And if you use the tools enough, you can even ask the tools, and some people are doing this stuff. You go in there and ask, based on what you know about me, how would I answer this question? And you'd be shocked based on the amount of information you're putting in there on how it would interpret it. Here's the other thing, the other risk though with these tools. They want you to feel good about what you're putting in there. So they will positively reinforce your own biases if you let them.
Liz, I'll add in. You were talking about you and.
Okay, go.
You and Mike were both talking about how you can use your own information, right? And as a sales leader, these two tips might be pretty helpful. One of my favorite uses, I give AI all of my transcripts, and it helps me with many things. But separate of whatever the project is I'm working on or whatever, there's still a lot of what I call gold sitting in those transcripts. So I have some clients that refer to some of the ways I explain things as Reneeisms. And so I do a regular audit with AI, asking it to tell me what are some other Reneeisms where people react positively to how I explain or describe things. Like I use a lot of metaphors and things like that. And some people respond positively to those so that I remember to say them again. Because, I'm in a lot of places where I'm explaining a lot of things. And it kind of helps elevate things. So your example of, I don't use an avatar of myself, but your example of if you have a lot of sales reps and you can't do them all, but you're in tons of meetings and you're talking about the company and the products all the time. And there are many ways that you say it, and it can help you find some of the best that you can then share to help coach your people up, right? Give them some good gold to work from and mold from. And the second thing is, it's not always the case, but in many of the companies that I have worked at or had clients in, the sales leadership is the least publicly available person. They are not often the ones posting on LinkedIn. They are not sharing thought leadership. They're not doing those pieces of work. They're often doing a lot of reporting and forecasting and spending time in the CRM and coaching their people, right? But this is another place where, as Daryl said, actually lead. We're asking our sellers to be social sellers and everything else. And it can also help if you give it all of your content and your context, your personal context. It can help you as a sales leader start sharing some of that publicly too, like help you organize your thoughts so that you can be more comfortable sharing things. It sets a tone for your team. So I'm not saying ask it to write for you. I'm saying use it to kind of help identify what are some good things that you've said, use your own words, put it out there. But I think it's a good sidekick and confidant to help get sales leadership to put themselves out in social and writing blog posts, whatever more, because in many places they're the most invisible publicly.
Any last thoughts as we wrap up how sales leaders can be using AI?
I'm just going to run with your idea about creating an avatar and give it to my wife. Hopefully that'll.
You just say you're going to switch over to the avatar and walk out of the room.
Exactly. Now you got it.
Yeah, for your kid. I think the bigger one
for the kids too. Yeah.
How many times do I have to say?
There you go.
I won't mind because the avatar will say it for me. I think a lot of sales leaders feel that way too, though, right? How many times do I have to say that same thing?
Yep.
This is why you work with the people who are on this call, because when all this stuff, when someone with a different sounding voice says that thing, it's amazing what lands.
Right.
So, lean on other people. But around my family, I sound like Charlie Brown's teacher. It's literally the same. It was awesome. Sean had a conversation with someone who is a VP of sales at a large company, and it was the dad of one of the guys that's in his in the fraternity, and he came back with all the notes. He's like, "Oh, when this person," he said, do these things, and this is some of the mistakes that folks make and whatnot. And Jen in the background was like, "Haven't you been telling him that stuff?" So. It just doesn't land. So remember, lean on others. Have a buddy who comes in and talks about it as an expert. You'd be shocked at how the same thing, and you can actually plant some ideas with that buddy, but you'd be shocked at how that message gets conveyed.
Yep.
All right. I think that wraps up this episode of the Sales SOS podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. In our next episode, we're going to talk about customers, AI and your customers. So join us there. And have a great day. Happy selling, everybody. Okay, so Renee, I just need one thing. You need to give me a clue that you're going to speak, so I have time to move you over before you're halfway through your sentence. Something. I don't get you up there fast enough, and you're already halfway through. Mike, on the other hand, right. Mike, I know when he's ready to speak. Daryl, sometimes I can guess, but Renee, I never have a chance to get you up there full on. So,
Renee, I just dropped in the chat my thing. Like, if you click on that, you'll see what ChatGPT said are Mike-isms, which is absolutely hilarious to just kind of look at. But anyway,
I just did that too, by the way, because we're doing a project and my team said we need some more Liz-isms. And what was really interesting was when I wrote back to it and said, I would never say this. I would never say this. And I would never say this way. And it apologized nicely and then fixed it. So it sounded like.
I will admit that I have said, I didn't say that. And it says it at 1 hour and 22 minutes and 14 seconds. You said.
That's awesome.
Okay. Well, that was out of context, right? All right, you guys, let's go back into our. All right, you ready for the next one? Welcome to the Sales SOS podcast. I'm Liz Hyman, and I am here with your Sales SOS podcast crew, Mike Simmons, Daryl Prell, and Renee Bigelow. And today we are talking about AI. And we've had 2 episodes talking about AI. One about what sales reps can be doing to up their game, and one about what sales managers can be doing, or what tools will make their lives easier. And this episode, we are going to talk about our customers. How are our customers using AI in their buying process, and how have their expectations changed as they've gotten more and more used to using AI? I want to just start off for a second and share a couple of thoughts that I have, which are this. In an earlier episode, I gave an example of getting on the phone with somebody who asked for my time. And when we got on the phone or we got on the chat, he had not even looked me up. He didn't know who I was. He didn't know what I did. It was rather embarrassing for him by the time I was done letting him know that wasn't okay. And he was wasting my time. But we have been saying, even before sales reps were using AI, we've been saying that customers expect a more tailored journey. They expect a journey that matches their buying process. They expect to engage with our website and our tools in a way that lets them know that the company they're buying from understands them. So, and Renee, you could talk more about this, but that expectation was already set. And what I will say, I think, is that AI raised the bar. And in the last episode, Mike said, in no uncertain terms, if you are not prepared for your meeting, that is unacceptable. And it's always been unacceptable. But now we have so much more information at our fingertips. We should be better prepared. And in fact, our customers expect us to be better prepared. So I think that's the first thing before we go any further, is understanding that our customers, our prospects, their expectations have changed. And we have to show up in a way that looks like and feels like we have prepared. So I'm going to start there, and I want to throw it out there. Renee, you want to start this out?
This one, I'm so super passionate on this one, and in particular for this year, right? Like the past 2 or 3 years, I think that AI, the big focus has been how can we be more productive, right? And we're all talking about how we can be more productive and efficient and whatever else, right? Like how can we do our jobs better? What can it do for me, right? Well, we've gotten a few billion people used to using AI and doing better with it. And if they were doing it for their job or doing it for writing a speech or whatever else, they've gotten used to using AI. And they've kind of crossed the chasm for a lot of uses, right? So now we have consumer behavior shifting. And I don't think that this is really talked about enough right now because it's in the early stages. It is absolutely breaking the top of the funnel for a lot of people, right? Especially if you were depending on organic search and there are changes now and you had a very clear inbound process where people came to you through organic search, clicked to your website. Once you got them on their website, they converted. Now we're in a much bigger zero-click environment and they aren't coming through, right? That does not mean they do not know more about your ad, about your.
Wait. Renee, you have to stop. A zero-click environment.
Okay, so that means I am getting information about your brand, but I am not clicking to your website, filling out a form, saying contact us, getting handed over to someone in sales who can see every little page that I've clicked on and then says, let's talk, right? Instead, I'm doing this whole journey going down on my own with the assistance of AI. It means I never have to go to your website, right? So that changes something hugely. I think everybody has been focused on that top of the funnel change, but they haven't noticed that consumers are quietly carrying AI into spaces with them. And I'm going to give you an example of my own that I think surprised even me. And I try to eat my own dog food and figure out where consumers are going and try to push it so that I'm doing the new behavior that I think will emerge. I expected when I went to buy a new car to use it to help me narrow down the model of car, right? But I got far more value out of AI once I stepped on the lot than to get me to the lot. Because for decades, we have relied on putting information about our companies out there, and it's been very implicit and had a lot of gaps. What was the one thing that we used to bridge that? Sales. There was a human who could bridge those gaps for you. The human came in and explained, answered the questions, tied everything up in a neat bow, right? All of those things. If I keep going and don't talk to the human, if I get AI to help me through more of it, you have to be prepared to bridge in different ways, right? And so I show up to the dealer lot. I have done my research on the different things where I can't quite figure out that, and I'll point this to you, Honda, if you're listening. Honda did a horrible job in telling me the different trim options of the like 5 or 6 versions of the car that I was looking at, right? The salesperson gave me the wrong information. I literally left the lot and went to go look at my second, third, and fourth choices. I really wanted the Honda and felt after talking to the salesperson that I wasn't going to be able to get what I wanted. AI sat down with me and went through it and said, no. This trim level has exactly what you want. I go back to the dealership. The salesperson says, we don't have that. And I'm like, hold on. I pulled out my camera. I start showing the car, everything in the car. The AI tells the salesperson and me, because I put it on speaker, the AI tells us both that it is in the next trim level and tells them to go find the next trim level. Right? So it's now doing his job of selling this for me. So I think, okay, AI helped me really figure it out. I would have walked away, got in a car I didn't want because I thought the one I wanted didn't exist. I thought, great, I've taken it through the process. Guess what? I go in when Honda does a financing deal or whatever to go buy the car, right? And I get in there and the dealership that I go to talk to says they want to add the above market adjustment rate or whatever above sticker price. And I was like, this is not at the other dealerships, like I pull AI out and it starts negotiating for me with the dealer. And it uses data that the dealer couldn't refute. right? They started to, but then I could pull it up in the other places. I even then stopped, called the other dealership and asked, are they adding a market adjustment rate, right? It was literally in the negotiation with me. Then I get to finance, and I go to buy the warranty because I wanted the warranty, and they wanted to sell me a warranty that wasn't Honda's. Pulled AI right back out and said, do I have to buy this other warranty, or can I tell them I only want to buy Honda? And it said, oh, you can absolutely tell them you want to buy Honda. And it gives me all the details about Honda. So I said to him, AI says this, right? They were thoroughly unprepared for AI to be in the buyer journey with me. Like, first of all, they were thoroughly unprepared to be the bridge and answer things correctly. But we all know every brand has salespeople that haven't done that bridge very well, right? From the gap in the data to where we want it to be. Right? We know that exists. So the thing that really stood out to me was not that this was so helpful. That did stand out to me personally, but that it threw the salespeople for a complete loop that I was bringing AI into this, right? So this idea of how far will people take it all the way through, right? So I think that's a big thing to get used to, the shift in consumer behavior, that you may be negotiating with a bot, right? You may be selling to a bot. The bot might actually call. I have customers who are starting to get phone calls from AI agents, like to book things, right? To set appointments, to do whatever. And some of them treated them like spam calls in the beginning. Well, the AI agent's just going to go down the street to the next place. Their job, the agent's job, is to finish it. So I just kind of wanted to set the stage for how much consumer behavior is shifting.
Okay, before you go anywhere, we need to hear the rest of the story. How did the dealership react as this was going on?
Oh, they didn't like it at all. I mean, they were very negative, right? That's what I mean by they were thoroughly unprepared for it. So like I had such a bad experience at the dealership where he told me that the car didn't have the right trim model. I went to the other dealership, but then at the other dealership, they started with the negotiating things, and like they were really not pleased at the sale that they had because they were mad, and like it became confrontational when it really didn't need to be, right? So you just need to be very prepared that your consumers are going to come in far more educated than they were. And I think part of why they were taken aback is they would have seen me come in as a lead in the past. And so they would have like seen some information, known where I was. They would have adjusted their script. You know, like she's come to the lot before, we already have her name. Like I came in more educated than they expected, and they had no data about it. That's that zero click thing. And again, that's just one example, but we've all gone through buying a car, so we all understand how stressful that situation is.
Please go back and listen to that, and then play that for your teams, no matter how you interact with customers. I don't care if you are at a grocery store, or you're on a car lot, or you're selling enterprise software into whatever. Go back and listen to it and start to think about how you could recreate the same experience that Renee did, and how uncomfortable people on your team would be. And then ask yourself the question, why are we uncomfortable? And just let that sit as a team. Like, why are we uncomfortable? And actually then follow that up with, what can we do to do better? How do we create a more amazing experience? And how can we take advantage of that kind of thing and just get cut to the chase? Like, ask the question, okay, so Renee, given everything that you're working on through this, and you want the car, we want to sell you the car, what do we need to do to bring us all together and figure that out and see how much faster you can do it? That's why I hate buying cars. I have a brother who loves going through that process because he likes negotiating. I'd rather spend an extra $2,000 if it's going to save me 4 hours. Like, I just don't want that pain in the ass, because my time is worth more than that. But go ahead, Renee.
I was just going to say, this took 15 minutes.
See, that is beautiful. Like, I love this. Now my car buying experience is changing as a result of Renee. So Renee, thank you.
I just didn't sit down. I just held the phone up and was like,
I love it.
I love it. Love it. Okay. So I'm hearing a couple of things as Renee is telling this story, which is an amazing story. One is, I do think people are leaning into AI earlier and using it further along the process. So now I'm, instead of, looking for an article or searching through Google, I go to AI and say, what are 4 programs that will do this for me? what one program will let me do this. I want to build a new website and I want to have 2 different blogs. What tool will allow me to have 2 blogs? And it will answer those questions. So here's what I hear, though, as I'm listening and thinking about this, is that means that mediocre website that you had that doesn't have all of the most updated information and is missing critical pieces because you figured your salesperson would deal with it is not adequate.
100.
You now need to make sure that in case they use their AI bot or tool or agent as the one giving them the information, that somewhere that it is getting the right information.
100%, Liz. I will tell you, when I do this kind of audit, and I will say because Google added AI search called AI mode to search, it's a big crossing the chasm moment. People who weren't going to ChatGPT to do this, it's nice and cozy in their Google bar that they've come to know and love, right? They don't have to do something new. It's coming to them in the same platform that they've done before. So when I do this with customers now, because we need to find these content gaps, we need to find the places where we were relying on a human to bridge, right? And when I do that, I will tell you 95% of the time, when there is not an answer, AI will introduce your competitor, even if you are all the way down to negotiating. Where you used to have them do a search, click, go to your website, educate themselves with everything on your website, talk to a person. They're not on your website, right? They're in another tool with an assistant who can help. And when it can't find the information that it wants, it'll say, well, I can't find it here. Honda didn't say this, but Subaru says they have this feature, right? It will literally say, if that feature is really important to you, Subaru says they have it. Volvo says they have this one. Toyota has this, right? All the way down the funnel, it could reintroduce your competitor back in. So you really do have to find those gaps in content, and your sales team is the key to finding them. I go and speak with the sales department, and I'm like, what are the questions you always have to answer that your website doesn't cover, right? Like, obviously, marketing didn't know this, or marketing would have put it out there. They're not trying to put a crappy website out there, right? So you go into your sales teams and you start getting that information and getting the bridge to help you get it more explicit.
Any other thoughts, you guys? Gerald, do you want to say something?
I mean, I want to say a lot, but I'll keep it short. I mean, you can't help but go from how is the customer buying, and Renee's done a wonderful job of just really demonstrating how it's changed, to the embedded marketing. So you get found by the actual AI engines, and you're part of the conversation, because like Renee just said, they'll introduce the competition into your cycle, but they'll introduce you into another person's cycle if the content's there. So it's kind of like marketing gets a second life, right? Now the content that we create is much more. We're able to be a little more wiser about it, as opposed to just looking at SEO and SEM and analyzing search terms. We can actually use AI to customize that, which is fantastic. What I will say is this: customers now, maybe historically what they would have done to shortlist is they would have gone to maybe G2, or they might have gone to an industry analyst, like maybe a Gartner, or they would have done word of mouth, talk to their buddies, their peers. Who are you using? And you saw the same brands get introduced over and over and over again. And I'm old enough now, Mike has mentioned that on a previous podcast, God bless you, brother, that I have seen so many times where a word of mouth referral became an easy purchase because it got rid of the risk. However, that purchase then goes south because it was a poor fit. They did zero due diligence just because it was the right brand. So what's happening now is AI is actually allowing the smaller, more nimble, more exciting, more innovative companies to compete with the established brand. So if you're an established brand, it's going to be harder for you to leverage that like before, because customers are going to do exactly that. They're going to say, this is my problem. what solutions do exactly this, and they'll be more researched, more knowledgeable before they ever talk to you, just like Renee was buying the car, which means marketing's got to be better, sales has got to be better, and you got to anticipate that. The second part is they can monitor the forums and social media for you to find new and innovative applications and tools that are coming up. So customers now are actually getting on bandwagons faster of that next great tool that might have killed an upstart because they didn't have enough cash to get, to do a big enough, SEM buy or what have you. So it's changed. It's really changed. Hopefully customers will run with that because it's an opportunity for them. They're killing their risks. They're getting the right match. They're going in informed. They can negotiate better. Their sales cycle will be faster. They'll anticipate the obstacles to deployment. All of this is now bonus for them. And all I can say is if you're not doing this as a customer, you're missing a huge opportunity because you're just putting yourself, you're exposing yourself to unnecessary risk and potential failure that you can so easily avoid now.
Daryl, I'll add one thought. I'll add one thought to what you just said about customers jumping on the bandwagon sooner, because I'm a geek, and I'll admit that I'm a geek when it comes to this and understanding shifting consumer behavior. In this spring, Anthropic released, what goes on in AI is a black box to all of us, right? We have things like Google Trends, and we have our Search Console, our Google Analytics. We have a lot of tools in the traditional web version of the past 2 decades where we could get some ideas and some leading indicators for things and kind of build some customer journeys around. What goes on in AI is a black box because it's all private information that isn't generated out. Anthropic has created an anonymized data collection system called Clio, and they have started releasing some data out of how people use AI. And they did one on the workplace, how people are using AI on the workplace. And I looked at it and said, whoa, I work with B2B. I see buying behavior. I see customer journey behavior in this data, right? So I'm not really worried about like what job was doing the skill. I want to know what these skills are. So they released like 500,000 tasks that people were using AI for. And I did a research project on it and found that the number one, I mapped it to the buying stages, right? And the number one stage wasn't down the funnel with like solution awareness, right? And it wasn't in consideration, and it wasn't in negotiation, any of those. It was up in problem awareness. It is helping customers figure out what their problems really are. And if that is a boon for all of us, if AI is helping customers understand their problems better, are you going to use it to help you figure out what your problem is and then go, okay, no thanks, I'll go find a solution on my own? No, you're going to keep going, right? So if it starts really early, it could speed up the velocity of sales cycles fantastically, right? Like it really has a lot of that potential. And if we think about the fact that our customers are getting better educated on their problem awareness, like I don't have a label for this. Before, to search, I had to know what I was looking for to get to it. Now it will help me figure out what I'm looking for, right? So I say that to say that that is another trend that we can be looking for in this consumer shifting behavior. They've already have a better understanding of their problems, and that's a way we can adjust how we sell.
What jumps out at me is how it's gone a 180. In sales, we used to say, "Hi, Sally. My name's Daryl. I'm with company ABC." People who invest in us are typically these type of individuals in this industry with these pain points. Is that something that resonates with you? And they would say, well, yes, it does. We have the same problem, and starts the journey. Whereas now it's a flip. It's the prospect saying, they're reaching out to the rep and saying, maybe way down in the funnel. And then they're saying, I'm in this industry. These are my issues. I know I'm not alone. I know that the following solutions work for me based on the following criteria, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, like very specific, not broad. And I just need to confirm a few things with you and how can we move forward? Like, it's a 180 now.
Liz, you talk about this a lot, about matching to where your customer is and not taking them backwards, right? You probably have some thoughts about that.
Yeah, well, so it's interesting because Gartner's been saying for a long time that your customer is 70% of the way down their sales process when they interact with you. And I don't think that was 100% true before. I think that
Agreed.
They, depending upon where you reach them in their buying decision, their buying process, they're that far down. But if they have done all of the research, come to your website and filled out a form that says, I'm ready for a conversation, they're probably 70% of the way down their sales process. But I think that now what we're describing is somebody being 90% of their way down, right? By the time I talk to you, I am ready to make a decision. I am ready to say, I want this. The problem is going to come now where if they believe AI 100% and the AI hasn't given them accurate information, we are now going to have to convince them that the AI information they have is not accurate. And then we do have to take them backwards, but it's going to be harder than ever to move people back down that buying process to think about other options or other ways to think about it. So, but I still say, like, if you're the first one to have a conversation about them while they are still formulating, you're still in a better place than if you are waiting and hoping that they're going to take their journey and die.
Liz, can I just add on to what you just said? I believe 100% that you're right. It's by the time they raise their hand to be sold to, right, that they've gone down that far. I regularly see when I get into a customer's database that somebody that they think is a new lead has been in their CRM for 18 months, maybe 2 years. They've been circling around educating themselves, and we've done some sort of lead scoring. They haven't tipped over based on this fuzzy intent data, right? Everything else. So this is where marketing is. I think the whole theme of everything I'm saying is marketing and sales are getting tighter and tighter as the consumer gets more information, right? You the ability to not be aligned in marketing and sales is just melting in front of us. We've seen it's been a problem for the past 2 decades, but it's going to become way bigger. So this idea of knowing when people enter, marketing getting to them faster if they aren't ready to talk, if they're going to be later, making sure marketing is doing some of that talking and bridging for you in that 18 months that they're sitting in your sandbox, right?
Yeah. So now our articles, our interactions, our spec sheets, all of that stuff that's out there is going to have to do a better job of predicting what questions they're going to be asking as they're going through this journey with AI.
So,
Mike, did you have something? Oh, go ahead.
Funny story, and I'll keep this short, but again, how things have changed for the customer. In the last week, so context, I live in Ottawa, Canada, Ottawa being Canadian version of Washington, D.C. for the U.S. All right, so 50% of the people who live here are government employees. And we have a booming tech industry too. Why is that relevant? Now, last week, I was talking to a friend of mine in the government in the finance area, and they were sharing with me how now they use AI nonstop to create all of their RFPs that they send to market. And they're using AI the exact same way customers we've discussed are using AI. What are the features I need, everything else, and for this very specific, use case and application. And it generates the RFP. And I thought, wow, isn't that crazy? That's, times have changed. And then 2 days later, I'm talking to a local tech vendor. Great guy. And they sell to the government largely. And he was sharing with me about how now they get RFPs and, they sieve and they find all the RFPs and they pull them down and they just use AI to analyze the RFP and build their response. So it's now the battle of AI and the RFP buying process. It's staggering how it's changed.
Daryl, I have to tell you, people think I'm talking like la la land when I say this, but we are at the point where we need to be thinking about how to our bots market to bots. And I even am starting to think about how we build referral networks amongst bots. It's moving fast.
Well, we had said we didn't want to get into the agent discussion, and I know we won't. One of the at the point where we decide to get into that kind of thing, you start looking at how AI agents work with other agents and then are managed by another agent. And that's where some of this really powerful stuff can happen as you move through things. Just in the time that we've been sitting here, I've done a couple of different, pushed a couple of different chats into ChatGPT, specifically around what are some of the prompts that would make me and Catalyst show up in a response? And then what are some of the things I can do to make me and Catalyst show up in those prompts? And so you just kind of work through these things. And if you ask those questions, it's amazing the kind of information that will reveal itself. Something that I think is really important for people to remember. And a lot of people will talk about customer journey type stuff. Even though there might be handoffs inside the customer environment, the customer actually works through all of those stages, both from initial problem unaware to problem aware to interest in solving the problem to actually making a decision to solve the problem to now implementing this thing to solve the problem to really excited about solving the problem and telling other people about it. And they go through that journey all the way. And Renee and team have talked about this connection between sales and marketing, how it's becoming tighter and tighter. Well, that same thing happens on the success side. So sales, marketing, and success all being tighter. And you start thinking about the different roles that people in those areas can play. One of the things that marketing does really, really well that I don't do well is communicate one-to-many. One-to-one, I'm pretty good at it. Meaning I look at nonverbal, I can see people nod heads, I can ask questions, I can see how people are leaning in or disconnecting. And that's really cool because I can take that feedback and iterate. I've never figured out how to do that at mass in a one-to-many environment. And we're trying to figure it out now using some of these tools that are available and start to make it a little bit more accessible. But think about one-to-many inside your existing customer environment and how do things change as you start to nurture conversions that are happening inside that operating environment based on the data that you have. And I think the blending and bridging of gaps here is really, really powerful. I'm super excited to be here on this rock while all of this stuff is going on, even with all the noise that's happening in there. This conversation has been amazing. I think it's just been cool just to sit here and listen and be a part of it. Because Renee, that whole discussion around the buying experience in a dealership level and doing that in real time was, I'm not going to curse and swear, it was absolutely amazing.
I have to tell you, I surprised myself with it. Like if I just opened myself up to the possibilities, I surprised myself because I never thought, if you'd have asked me a year ago, I'd have said, I'll do that for a 3-figure thing. I'll trust AI with a 3-figure decision, right? Help me choose a suitcase. Help me book a hotel room. Help me find and research. Like I would have given the risk level, right? A 3-figure decision. But I mean, if I tell you I buy a Honda Pilot, you know about how much I spend on it. That is a high financial decision. That is more than many B2B buyers are going to spend in a sales conversation, right? That's a high risk environment. And I turned over a lot more trust. And consumers tend to be stingier with their own money in those decisions and lower risk than with the companies. So imagine how much in a B2B environment that could move forward.
I'm just happy I did the shopping for a spouse thing well before this all happened, because I can't imagine what the AIs against AIs are doing at the bars.
Okay, then we need to wrap this conversation up. We have had a great time talking about AI and how as consumers we can use it, and how as salespeople we need to understand it, and as leaders we need to understand it. I want to wrap up this episode of your Sales SOS podcast, and I just want to say, hey, you guys, I'll have my bot call your bot, and we'll get it done. And in the meantime, we're going to spend a few more minutes. In our next episode, we are going to talk a little bit about noise. So have a great day, everybody, and happy selling. Okay, we're over time, or almost over time, and ready to start our last episode. Can we just spend like 10 minutes? Do you have 10 more minutes or no? Yeah.
Let's do it. But
Okay.
Mike, you got to talk less, brother. You're killing us.
Thank you.
I think I was the problem last time.
Renee, you were absolutely awesome last time.
You're
I'm
on fire.
going to go back in, and I'm going to ask Liz if she minds if I use part of that inside a podcast episode, because that was absolutely perfect.
Brilliant. I agree. I think that needs to become something that's out there.
As you all are working with sales leaders, I really do recommend that you have them go buy something using AI.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about noise. You ready? Welcome to the Sales SOS podcast. I'm Liz Hyman, your host, and I'm here with your Sales SOS podcast crew, Renee Bigelow, Daryl Prell, and Mike Simmons. And today we're talking about AI. And in the last 3 episodes, we talked about how salespeople can use it, how sales leaders can use it, and how consumers are using AI in their buying process. But one of the things that we are all really aware of is the amount of noise that AI can create. And I will give you an example. I keep saying I get 4,000 emails a month, but I realized I get 4,000 emails a month in my newsletter folder. That also includes people who are sending me emails that I didn't ask them to send them to me. I also have a junk folder. And I haven't counted how many emails come up in that junk folder. And I have the folder that is the stuff that I actually, there are people that I'm actually interacting with. They already know me. I already know them. So I don't know how many thousands of emails a month that is, but when we're talking about noise, that's the starting place, right? I have to get through all of that before I can start thinking about other things. I want to share another way that I think that AI creates a tremendous amount of noise. And for me, and I know this is going to sound funny, but because I'm an introvert, and if you know anything about introverts versus extroverts, introverts solve problems internally. They may gather information, but they solve it internally and then they put it out there and they may get input. Extroverts tend to go out into the world and gather information, sort it around, and then whatever they're doing comes out of all of that sorting of all of this data. So for me, I go to AI and I say, hey, will you help me solve this problem? And we go through however many iterations. I must have had 75 versions of my bio when I had to stop and walk away and start again because it was just too much noise. How do I deal with all of the things that I'm getting from the AI that I'm asking for, let alone the other noise that's out in the universe? And you guys may have other thoughts about AI and noise and how it creates noise and how we can get through all of that noise. Like an AI tool, I use a toolbox called Sane Later, which actually sorts through my email and figures out what's not critical and puts it in this Sane Later folder, which is kind of my newsletters folder. So, and junk mail also does that, right? So the second thing is, are there tools that we can use? And this is going to be a pretty short podcast, but I think I've set you up. Who wants to start? Mike, I think this was something you really wanted to dive into. So why don't we start with you?
So how do you eliminate noise? You start to cut things off. You put things like headphones on or blinders on and keep this level of focus. But one part is figuring out what do you want to focus time, energy, and attention on. And the key question I like to ask, and we've talked about this a bit over the course of this episode and others, is what is the specific problem we're looking to solve? So if I can narrow in on what is the specific problem I can solve, then I can start to focus time, energy, and attention on solving that specific thing. And it just starts to narrow focus to cut down noise and eliminate it. There is so much noise that's out there. So many people are out there talking about this new thing. I think the one that's getting a lot of attention right now, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, these AI coaches, because now it's super easy to create video. I've got a video out there where my dog asks an interview question. and that's using Hedra as a tool. And the dog picture came from ChatGPT. And it was a version of taking my dog and applying it into that context. If I can do this stuff, a lot of other people can do this stuff. And if a lot of other people are doing it, more and more people will continue to do it. And it's just going to create more and more noise out there. So get back to that. Hey, what's the specific problem that I'm looking to solve? What's the specific job to be done here? And if you're not familiar with job to be done framework, take a look at Clayton Christensen. Do a search for Clayton Christensen, Milkshake, and HBR. Those things will show the job to be done framework or job to be done concept, and you can start applying it in this concept. So that's how I work to eliminate noise. Problem to be solved, job to be done.
I just want to know, was your dog sitting while they were asking the questions?
Dude, it's absolutely hilarious, Daryl. It's one in the animated version, the dog actually has fingers, which is a little bit freaky. But in the more produced video version, again, using Hedra, it's insane how close the lip syncing is. What's super weird is the first time I did it, I had it have my voice. So my voice with Grizz's mouth moving was a little bit weird. So then you start to go in and add in some other voices in there, but you can even do that. So it can take your voice and change your voice around. So at some point in time, I'm going to sound like Daryl Prell.
That's too bad.
Renee, you want to chime in?
Yeah. I mean, you all know I use a ton of AI, but I do try to be very deliberate. I mean, there's always FOMO, right? There's always something. Daryl's talking about a new tool. You're talking about a tool, right? There's always FOMO, like, oh, I need to check it out. I keep a list of the things that I feel like are important that maybe I'm going to need on my next step or want to be's. A lot of the video tools are kind of want to be's for me, but many of them have very short time limits. So my trade-off for what I'm going to get out of those now is not as high as what I need it. So I kind of have those on my wants, not my needs, right? But making sure that you understand your needs well enough. I just shared with someone today, ChatGPT released GPT-5, right? OpenAI's releases have been buggy and problematic over the last year or so. They're on the frontier and releasing the most innovative, cutting edge things, right? But when they release it, it causes a problem if you are on deadline and there's a bug or a problem or an issue and you're trying to get some work done today that you need to get done. So I have redundancy, and I tend to lean into systems that are dependable for the basic things and have basic workflows that I know I can rely on if AI is worked into those, right? So I think that's one level. And then I have my experimentation bucket and the things that I'm always working on. And then I have the, like, how much am I eating my own dog food and living it? If I need to know what consumers are doing, what salespeople are going through, what CEOs are expecting, like all these things, I set aside time to do that. But I'm very deliberate now. I can't say that I always have been, but there's so much coming at us all the time and so many best practices whizzing around. I'm very deliberate in making sure of where those buckets are. And for me at the moment, the thing that I'm most focused on is where consumer behavior is shifting more than what tool can I play with to do things. And I think that's different for everybody, right? Like, I'm not the person that has an assignment list of pushing out content every day inside of a marketing team. There are people I work with that is their number one thing, right? So I think really being clear about what your goals are. And I know Daryl said, Mike said the job's to be done. I think that's very fair, but also kind of bucketing what your goals are and what you need to rely on versus what you can tolerate experimentation and blips and bugs and, ripples in your workflow from. I think those are the things that have really kind of calmed the noise for me, so that when I'm in a very busy week, I know where I can go and get things done without it sucking me in.
So I'm gonna give you an example of thinking that AI is going to solve your problem, and then you spend a lot of time and it doesn't work the way you thought. So I needed a spreadsheet. And my initial thought was, this is going to take me forever. I have a list of companies. There were 40 companies, and I wanted to know certain things about them: how big they were, how much, how many employees, how much revenue, what product did they sell, what year were they established. I don't remember what the other piece was. And I was like, this should be easy. This is something ChatGPT should be able to do. 2.5 hours later, my message to ChatGPT was, I don't understand. I've asked you to do this, and you continue to give me spreadsheets that are only halfway filled out or have fictitious information. And you keep asking me if I would like you to replace the fictitious information. And I keep saying yes. So then I asked ChatGPT, how can I do this in a way that you can give me the answers I need, right? 2.5 hours into this. I'm like, this is a simple thing. Then ChatGPT informed me, I can only do 5 at a time. I'm like, oh. So I had to let it do 5 at a time, 5 at a time, 5 at a time, wait till it was all done, and then ask it to combine it into one spreadsheet, right? That for me was a level of noise I did not have the time or patience for. Right. So, part of this is what we talked about in the first episode about AI, which was prompting, learning how to prompt, but also understanding what the tool you're using can and can't do. And that is a long process, and it's noisy and it's bumpy, and it requires a tremendous amount of patience, which I will tell you, I was born without. So, as we're thinking about using AI, I think that's part of the noise people are worried about. Is it going to do what I think it's going to do? Is it going to do it right? Is it going to take a lot of time? Mike, it looks like you've got a thought you want to share about this.
The thing I would add to it is, and it gets into that clarity around jobs to be done. Don't make the job multiple jobs. Do a job, just one job. And just outsource that one job first and see how it does it, and then start to add other jobs, and then maybe pull those back together, which is a cool part of the process that Liz figured out, even though it was frustrating to go through and do it. And then this is where even asking those questions, like, what are the limitations that I'm not seeing? What are your limitations? What's getting in the way of you being able to do it? The list building that Exa can do is phenomenal. I used to think I couldn't imagine being able to do some of the things that I've done over my career in sales today with the access that we have to information via LinkedIn. Like, had I had that earlier on, wow. But then the other one is now this stuff, and it's like, wow. So I look at it and I think, how can we help the sales professionals of today and tomorrow do those things? Because again, wow, amazing what we'll have in front of us. So that's the only other thing I would add is just understand what the limitations are as you go through the process. Ask that question, as it'll give you an answer.
Yeah. So before you spend 2.5 hours, ask for some help.
Well, now you know. So next time you won't spend 2.5 hours.
Daryl, did you have something you want to share?
No, I was going to say this feels like a therapy session for me, which is fantastic because I have Renee's enthusiasm. I have Mike's wonder and just appreciation for how things have changed and what access I can do. But I live often and frequently in Liz's frustration because it's like, this should be easy. Everybody else is doing it. Apparently, you read about it, whatever, right? What am I missing? And I think I'm not stupid. So, it definitely, and it's like finding the right tool for the right job, right? Do I need Midjourney or do I need Hedra? It's if you don't know what either one of those are, look it up. All right, but it's just like there's no one tool that does it all. Right. So as efficient and as great as it is, it's still a process, and you have to make the investment, and it annoys the hell out of me sometimes for the exact same reasons that Liz says. And sometimes it's just outright stupid, and you always have to have your common sense hat on because even though it's AI, the model is built upon data that it's skimmed and scanned and whatnot. Not all that data is accurate. So just
Daryl, this is some of what I was saying earlier. Like for me, anyway, that part of like the repeatable, dependable part is taking the time. So like Liz figured this out about spreadsheet. So now, if there was enough value in what you got, that becomes something I've already figured out. It becomes something I figure out. Can I make repeatable? Can I build this into a workflow or a process? Right? How are the many different ways I could apply what I just learned? And because I know how to do that now, right? Like, so what the frustration part is in my experimentation budget, right?
Yeah.
Of time. And then once I find things that work, it moves into my repeatable, dependable, reliable budget of time that I spend with it. And, I have to be prepared and understanding that these are frontier companies that are going to change things and break things, and I have to relearn. So I pay attention to when things are coming, and I either make sure I don't need to depend on it during that time, or that I have something that, I take the time to learn what they've changed so that I can get my dependable, repeatable thing back. There is a trade-off, right? If I had to base all of it solely on efficiency, I wouldn't be doing anything I'm doing right now. But if I want to think about better, I can promise you that I'm doing a lot of things better than I was able to do without it.
Agreed. Totally agree.
One of the most frustrating things that I've run into with some of the GPTs that I've created, and it's not as much now, but it went through a period where this was happening, is it would return a result that was completely different than what I had expected it to. And I would have to reprompt and say, or put a prompt back in, or actually more of a command, follow the original instructions. And then it would go ahead and go right back. It would forget all the crap that it did and go back and do the thing the right way, or the way that I had wanted it. Now we're at the point, and that would have been like 3 or 3.5. Now we're at the point where it's not doing that stuff again, and it's adding to, it's additive. So get out there and just test, and you can't break it. Like, there really isn't anything that you're going to do that's wrong, or test with something super simple. Like, let's say your favorite recipe is X, whatever it is. Just put in and see what it would come up with for a recipe. What's the best recipe for this other thing? And then kind of play around and test with it and see what you can do with it, what you can mold based on the experiment you run, because it's all just one giant experiment.
I want to add one more thought before we wrap up and see if you guys have any comments about this. But I think the other place that is really noisy right now, and you may not be as aware of it as I am in the role that I play, but there are so many new tools. So two things are happening. One is everyone is adding AI to their SaaS. And that is because that's what the market is driving. I can tell you that last year when I was at SaaStr, Jeremy said, if your SaaS tool does not have AI, no one will invest in it. Right?
It's the same as not having an integration in 2018.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So it must have AI. But at the same time, as a sales consultant, I am getting a lot of outreach from people who are creating AI sales tools, and they want me to give them an opinion. And there are so many. I can't fathom how all of these people who are producing AI tools just for sales, let alone all of the other things they create them for, how the market can possibly absorb it, and how we as consumers can figure out what it is that we should be buying or using or investing in learning. And I think that is another part of the noise that we really need to think about. Mike, you got something for me?
My perspective on this is identify the problem you want to solve, identify the job to be done. And if you do those things and stay focused on it, make it as simple as possible, the path will start to reveal itself, because there are so many things that you can do. And there are so many things that these tools can do. And there are so many things that they'll present themselves as doing. Test them, like put it through the process. See, to Renee's point, see if it's repeatable. The thing is repeatable. If you can't repeat it, It's like way back when everybody was doing, wasn't everybody doing discovered cold, had been able to replicate cold fusion way back when, and then you couldn't do it in a lab environment. And then people said, okay, maybe that's not really a thing that we're able to do at this point in time. Like go in, apply the scientific method. Just do that. And if you don't know what the scientific method is, go into a chat and ask what the scientific method is, and then do that. And you'll be shocked at what you find there, because there's a lot of noise and it's super easy to create new noise. I wonder how much of this extra investment in these AI tools is just this giant money flow into something that's going to create a very interesting bubble, because everybody's got it, but nobody knows what to do with it. I wonder.
Liz, I'd like to share one last tip that is also extremely helpful for me, and none of us have said it exactly, and that is I fell into in 2020, early maybe January of 2021, I fell into a group of GPT-3 enthusiasts, and back then it was before ChatGPT. You only had access to it through API, and so I learned a ton from a group of people, and I have maintained some of those relationships over years where I stay current through group collective learning, right? And I highly recommend that everybody find some people. I know you work closely with Bren, for instance. Everybody find some people that you feel comfortable with, because you're going to admit what you don't know. You're going to admit your mistakes. You need to trust that whatever they're recommending is worth your time. Build up a small group of people that you can learn collectively with. It doesn't have to be in your organization. It doesn't have to be in your role. Nobody in mine does exactly what I do. That helps us bring different points of view right in, and talk about it and make it like we all have priorities, that we attend networking things or attend conferences or whatever for our continuing education. I think finding a group of people that you can commit to this continuing education with AI and figure out best practices that people are finding, what is repeatable, what's working, what tools to use, whatever, with people you trust, cannot be said enough.
So I want to just add with one, finish up with one last thought, unless anybody else has something they really want to share. But that is, in our last episode, we were talking about bots talking to each other. And I want to wrap up with what happens when your bots or your tools disagree. So I use ChatGPT and Claude and a couple of other things. And I also use Grammarly. And my Grammarly and my ChatGPT do not get along. Have you guys tried that? Because Grammarly does not like the way
I don't go anywhere without my Grammarly.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think we're going to find a lot more of this as we incorporate more and more tools. The AI is not necessarily going to all say the same thing. And so we'll need to see where the AI leads us.
My new testing is I actually orchestrate multiple AI models together on projects, because they do say completely different things and they do excel at different things.
Yeah. Well, thanks for spending some time with us today in these last 4 episodes, talking about AI and how we can use it to improve our sales experience, our sales efforts, and our sales outcomes. I hope you'll join us here again next week if you've joined us live on LinkedIn Live, or listen to our next set of podcasts. Thanks to the crew, Mike and Renee and Daryl, for being here with me today. And you guys all have a great day and happy selling. All right, gang. And I cannot find the right button.